Okay, so we're back just to finish talking about point of view and tense. And we were just saying at the end of the last video that sometimes breaking up the narration like this and having your narration occur a little bit after each of the events that happens can be a good way to balance having that time for the character to reflect on what's just happened, but also keeping some sense of mystery about the future and not really knowing how the story is going to end and not knowing what's going to happen. So, of course, beyond all of that, you have also got sort of halfway options. So you can have the option where you're in the present the whole way through and you're telling them about what's happened. You can have the option where they're at the end point of the story here and they're telling you about this whole thing that's happened to them. You can have them stop after each event and tell you about what's just happened. Or, of course, as well, you can have them stop, say, at convenient points throughout your story and tell you what's happened there. So say, for example, you've got a bunch of scenes here where the character's doing something and it all flows into each other with action. So, in the right story, for example, it could be a bunch of battle scenes together and they're running from the enemy and having to hide. And so there wouldn't really be any logical point where they would be able to stop and tell you about what had happened. So if you think about it in terms of a diary entry, if you're in this scene here, you are the enemy soldiers come and knock on your door and you have to run for your life, and then this scene here is about you running through the woods while they're chasing you, and then this scene here is where you finally get to your friend's house and it's somewhere safe that you can stop for the night. That is a logical point then for your character to stop and be able to tell you what's happened. It's not so logical for them to be able to stop here between, the soldiers knocking on the door and them running through the forest. There's not really going to be a point there for them to have stopped and be telling you about what's happened. And same, between when they're running through the forest and between getting to their friend's house to safety. That is a really nice logical sort of point for them to stop and catch you up on the information about what's happened. Now, this doesn't necessarily make a big difference in your story if you're writing super short stories, but it is something important to keep in mind just in terms of how much forward knowledge they have. It's also really important when you start to think about the scope of your story and how much you're actually trying to include in your story. And we're going to talk about that in another video about scenes and how to actually break up your action into these little circular moments here that we've got here of action. And how to use those scenes really effectively to avoid having your story just either drag on for too long or trying to cram too many different points down into one short little story. So we'll talk about that in the next video, which is going to be on scene structure, and I will see you there.